Howdy. Okay, so step 4 of 14 steps to your MakiBox. So, if you're following the instruction manual or original instruction manual, there are a few deviations. We'll be doing the power board on this step, which is not indicated in this step, and then you also might see, let's see now, yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so for this step, you're going to want your bottom chassis panel, the pretty MakiBox logos and everything. You're going to want your assembly that you've already done previously. And you're going to need your driver board, which should come in any static envelope. Now, one word of caution: when you're handling any bare electronic boards like this, be careful with it, okay? It's easy enough to short it out. If you're in a place that you know that you tend to have a lot of static electricity, be extra careful. Ground yourself before you touch this stuff, because you can damage the board if you have a lot of static built up. So when you're handling this, treat it gently, handle it by the edges generally. Try to not like grab a hold of things too directly. So basically, if you're going to shock it, it's going to be better if you shock it on some of the main components instead of like on some of the smaller things. If it gets filtered through some of the like power channels instead of like on one of the I/O. But just in general, treat it nicely. It can be kind of fragile. So, what else? So for this step, you will need one nils block. This goes on to protect the USB connector. It was named after our heroic nils that was the first one to successfully pry off the USB connector on our driver board, although probably not the last. So one note about this USB connector: be really careful with it, okay? This is a known problem with the printer board design in general. This connector is probably not the best choice for this application, so you do need to be careful with this. If you've got a USB cable going into it, basically just push gently enough to where it clicks. 2, don't lift up or push down too much, so be careful about whacking the cable once you have it in place. Okay, so 1 nils block. Got this insert here. So it's basically 8 millimeters in diameter on the inside and about 10 on the outside, to give you a rough scale. You'll have 2 of these guys. These are the rollers for the bottom of the spool feeder. Now, if you see any kind of sharp bits hanging off, you can use your wire cutters to kind of clean that up. We'll generally try to do this for you, but it's possible that you will see some flashing or something. So 2 of these. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then from your screw supply, you should have 3 12 mm M3 screws and the 120 mm M3 screw. Those are for doing the board, so you can kind of set them aside with the board itself. Okay, and that's it for this, for the parts for this. So, yeah. Okay, so, oh, sorry. And then one more thing that we need that's not in this, the original manuals, it's the power board. So this is actually what connects the, basically the connector here is what the power supply plugs into. Okay, and then that slots right into the base. So we're going to start with the rollers. Just drop them onto those bosses right there. Now, this insert for the Z-axis goes right there. And it should just drop into place. And then the power board slot right in there. Now you're going to have to watch your wires a bit as you're bringing everything in place. You're going to want to bring this connector through this square opening here. So, just like that. And then just carefully bring everything down vertically. You're going to want to make sure that these rollers fit into the slots that are right below them. And just push everything down vertically. Watch out for any wires that got smushed in between different panels or anything. And then give it a nice firm press. And that's it. You successfully located your chassis. Now, next easiest step is basically just turn the whole thing upside down, and you're going to take 6 of these guys, sorry, 4 of these guys, go right in. So there's one on either end of the vertical chassis panels. Again, as soon as you feel it basically give you some tension, more than what you had to start with, stop screwing. So you'll see it hit the top and then just firm it down. You don't need to keep going. You can sit there and turn it all day and it'll strip out, which is not what you want. Okay, then one more here. So there's 4 total, one on either end of the vertical panels. And that's it for these guys. At this point, if you wanted, you could try putting the feet in, just out of convenience. You don't actually have this as a full step in the instruction manual. Seems like these guys actually, the ones that we've been using, fit on these works pretty well. So start with them there. Just make sure that they're well seated. Then I personally tend to put a couple kind of in the middle, just to keep basically to support this area when you have it turned over. It's not necessarily like a specifically designed way to do all the feet. Okay, so that's that part. No. Yep. Okay, we're ready to put the driver board in. So the driver board fits right here. Again, be kind of careful when you're handling it. Make sure you don't have any static built up. Fits right there. The nose block fits right over this, but what I would do is I would start with two of the shorter 12 in them and 3 screws. So one here and one there, and then put the block on. So it's a little bit easier to work with it like this to start with, because you can just lay it right down. And again, when you're doing this stuff, kind of put your screws in place first. So like with this, I can actually fit both of them in place, get them started, but don't tighten any one down until you've got the others pretty close to where you want them. So just leave like just a little bit of wiggle room. Then with block, well, I would just get the screw started until it gets close to the block. And then what you'll want to do is snug it right up to the USB connector. Firmly set it. This one, you actually, it's, again, there's a limit because it is plastic, but at the same time, you can use a bit more force on this one. Because this block is what's going to keep your USB connector healthy. So you give it a little bit more snugness. But you can see I'm using just the small end of this driver, so we're not talking a huge amount of force. Now, again, this is kind of going out of order of the instruction manual, but at this time I would tend to recommend doing the connections for the components that you already have in place so that you don't have wires everywhere. So you might want to skip ahead to step 11 for reference. And so you can start with the power connector there. Then I would tend to just pull the excess back through. And then, so motor connectors, it goes X, Y, Z from down here. So X. Y, and Z. Now later on you can bundle these up so that it's nice and pretty, but I would wait until you have the extruder here to do that. This yellow wire, no, we're going to try to be consistent with colorings, but depending on if you can see them clearly or not. So basically if you follow down to the limit switch that is pointing in this direction is the Y limit. So tucking it under the motor wires, and then it goes in the second position there. The white wire is the x-axis limit. And it goes in the first position right next to the USB connector. And then the red wire is the z-axis. And it goes in the third position on this side, like so. So X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z. Alrighty. It for these guys. Now again, you might want to bundle these together. I happen to have some extra cable ties here I'm going to use. I'm actually putting these on backwards so that they're removable. Keeps them together. I'm going to do the same thing for the motors, even though we'll need to redo this later on for the when we add the extruder. But I'm doing it backwards so then it doesn't lock on. Now, we'll probably be including a few extra of these. There you go. So, okay, so I think that is it for step 4. Okay.